All right. Yo, 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 yo. What's up? What's up? What's up? Give up the rack. How are we today, my fellow revolutionaries? If you're joining me from Australia, this is Friday. And so it is the day before the weekend. Yo, 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 yo is 4IS in the house. Give up the rack. Yeah, as I was saying, if you're joining us from Australia, this is the eve of the most cherished time in the working class week, the weekend, Friday. That's right. And it is, remember, it is a homage to the working people that have come before us and hearts fought so hard for wins against capital. And so we take the time to acknowledge the importance of this most sacred time in the week, and we pay our respects to workers past, present, and emerging. So, saying all of that, today we're going to be doing something very exciting. How's all the triggered righties in your shorts? There's actually a few of them that are coming out. It's actually pretty funny, right? Like, I was thinking that like I might be getting some. I was actually expecting more pushback from kind of right-wing people about like communism on this recent short that I did. But like the reaction is more, oh, you like what I did there? Thank you for IS. I'm going to turn the identity politics rituals into rituals of labor. So, something to remember for IS. Ollie Atlas. It is good to have you here, and good evening from the other side of the world. Yes, it was interesting to see the responses. I saw you, Ollie Atlas, in some of the comments on some of those on that skit that I did in regards to kind of the anti-commie logic, which is they don't really believe in a classless society kind of thing. Sorry, yeah, they don't believe in the classless society of communism. But like, if you start talking to them about, the working class and the bourgeoisie and all that sort of stuff, they're usually like, "Oh man, class doesn't really exist," all that sort of stuff. And like a lot of the reaction in those comments actually for I thought was rather surprising. I can never gauge public response, but like, the commentary was more along the lines of like, "Who says that class doesn't exist?" I pay my respects to all workers, past, present, and emerging. It does sound nice, doesn't it? And it's a real kind of, yeah, respect to the working class kind of thing, which we all deserve as the people that basically have are the founders of modernity, because it is upon our backs, the working class backs, that the entirety of society is built. I'm not going to say that it was imagined by working class people, but it is upon our backs that it is built. I skipped class all the time. It definitely exists. That's a good one. I like what you did there. Yeah, apparently. Very bad influence. But yes, the idea, the sentiment that's coming back, the feedback is just like, who doesn't think class exists? And I'm just like, what? Like, this is really confusing all of a sudden. Now the zeitgeist in this comment section is that like class is just a given. Like, for so long people have slagged the idea of like a class society, and it's like, it's Marxist, outdated Marxist rubbish. And like, now it's just like a lot of people are just like, what are you talking about? This is just normal. Stop trying to straw man your opposition. Or, use a proper steel man if you want to formulate your argument, etc., so on and so forth. Yeah, it's a weird right wing kind of sentiment. The only one that I thought was rather peculiar was someone that called themselves a social democratic Georgist. So I've looked up Georgism since then, but I thought that the way they described themselves was just trying to kind of make themselves very special and unique in the way that they detailed it. But like, they were definitely of the opinion that class exists, which is interesting. I must say. People will always use insults to put down what they don't understand. I think that's a very, very common trait. It's very human, I guess, to do that as well, to immediately go on the attack to things that's like, break down your worldview, because it can be very confronting when someone comes along and tries to shatter it. We do like to have a sense of stasis as human beings, so we can continue to exist in our own environments, which are based on series and series and layers of assumptions, and things that start to fundamentally break down our assumptions about the world around us can be very, very dramatic and confrontational. So I can see why people get insulted, but I was just put back, I'll cop all the insults, but the general sentiment was oh, but who says class doesn't exist? And I'm just like, what? Who are you people? And where the fuck have you been? Let's talk about class then, shall we? Now, what is the topic for today? As the title suggests, and as the thumbnail, which I thought was pretty sick, that thumbnail, we're going to look at Techno Feudalism. Now, I've been on a bit of a rant over the last, week and a bit now, going off about kind of what is our position. So since last Friday, I guess, I've been talking about what's our strategy. The thumbnail was too sick. Thank you. I was actually quite proud of that thumbnail. Oh, Marxist dad. Oh, you got censored already? Far out. We're already what are we like? Yeah, we're not even 10 minutes in, and Marxist dad's getting censored. Well, you're in trouble. Now, as I was saying, I've been on a rant for a little while talking about strategy, and I think the primary point of strategy is to kind of assess your material conditions, immediate conditions, off the bat. And to do that, we have to be realistic about the level of consciousness that is out there. I would have thought that, from a, I know, right? How crazy, Jag? Crazy how much different censorship is on YouTube versus Twitch. They're worlds apart. Twitch is just kind of the most radical thing we get in a Twitch stream is someone coming in and being here, you can buy views and buy subs if you want, kind of thing. And here it seems like people really getting censored a bit. The anti-union member of the working class is the economic equivalent of an anti-vaxxer. It's a very interesting observation there. Yes, as I was saying, I think that as part of our strategy, we need to kind of assess the current situation in order to understand what we need to do, what is to be done, to borrow some terminology from the great revolutionary himself, Vladimir Lenin. What's his last name? What's his real name? I think it's Ulanov. And to borrow from his playbook as well, or from his situation and his lessons, the revolution was something that you could agitate in Russia because the general population there under the Tsarist regime had a large level of discontent for the establishment. And in the current situation, and I've put it to the group many times now, that we don't have a broad scale discontent with the system as such. I think most people think that if they understand what capitalism is, or they believe in that type of stuff, they believe that the system is broken, and we just need a few quick fixes, stopping migrants from coming into the country, or getting rid of DEI, or maybe shutting down right-wing movements and potential fascists and all that sort of stuff, which are all elements to try and band-aid solution capitalism. But I don't think anyone really, or there's very few people out there that believe that the entirety of capitalism is the problem and needs to be, changed. And so, like, without that fundamental level of consciousness that was there in the Russian Revolution, that was there in the French Revolution, that was there in the American Revolution, that was there in the Cuban insurrection, like without that fundamental sentiment in a large majority of the population, or a large enough majority of the population, that, like, the system needs to change, not to be, improved or humanized or something like that, but the system is the problem itself. We have nothing. We really need to work on that, if nothing else. And so, like, I've been going on about, like, neoliberalism a lot, and, like, trying to analyze that as the ideology that has basically obliterated the working class, and our consciousness. It censored me saying my name. What, Marxist dad? Like your own actual name? Port Verdome? That's very interesting. Really? It's weird. I got censored by TikTok the other day by putting up a picture of Lenin that was just a background picture. And it said it was radical content or something like that. Extremist content. Some words like that. And there's a picture of Lenin. And, like, I was like, this is a Chinese company. And, like, I'm pretty sure the Chinese Communist Party is, like, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist. And, like, they think that a picture of Lenin is extreme. You type Marxist daddy. Yeah. how fucking rebellious. Like, honestly, how fucking rebellious. Anyway, so I've been going on about neoliberalism as the ideology that is helping reproduce the capitalist order in the modern age as we know it. And the result of that is that, like, yes, you can't add daddy to Marxist. uh, that's actually pretty funny. Yeah. Who's your daddy? Who's your Marxist daddy? And I've been, like, ranting about, like, how neoliberalism has done this, and, like, I keep kind of making, like, references to techno feudalism. I actually do it a lot. Like, I do it a bit tongue in cheek sometimes, where I'm like, oh well, we're gonna end up with techno feudalism, or, like, is this techno feudalism? And, like, here we are, sounds like techno feudalism and stuff like that. And, like, I'm actually not across if everyone else that I speak to on these streams or watches, like, maybe the clips and stuff like that, is actually across what techno feudalism is. Good day all. Giannis fans say woot, woot, woot. Yes, there it is. Giannis Varoufakis, the legend himself. We will be discussing his concepts today. So you've joined us at the right time, beasts and gods. It's good to see you. And in using Australian vernacular, we would say g'day, as opposed to good day. That seems to be way too long for us. So, in saying all of that, I would like to, I guess, get a grasp on the concept of techno feudalism, so we're all on the same page about it, and then kind of develop that understanding a little bit, and then look at some critiques of the idea of techno feudalism, which might span over a couple of streams, but, like, I think we can do it. I've got a couple of critiques lined up. But, like, first of all, let's kind of get into what it really is. Well, this should prove interesting when my channel gets started here. It'll be redaction central today with Marx says fatherly figure. Yeah, watch out. You're already getting censored, so I can't wait for your channel to go off. And we'll see what actually happens to you. Speculation of how far can the bad thing be taken, as there are many fictional examples. Fun to go over. Okay, so, like, I'm assuming from that comment then, Ollie Atlas, then you are rather speculative or critical of whether or not we live / we are moving towards a techno feudal world. And so, like, I would just like to set the tone of the conversation with none other than, this is the text itself. What Killed Capitalism? Techno Feudalism by Yanis Varoufakis. And like, when was this published? First published in 2023. Oh, really? So I only read this like 2 years ago now. Okay. I don't know why I thought this has been around for longer than that. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to dip into the archives of Giannis on YouTube, and go back to where I first heard him really speaking about techno feudalism as a concept before he obviously finalized or further developed the notion into techno feudalism. And like, I just want to kind of give an excerpt for those of you. Like, it would be good to know, like, kind of a roll call kind of thing as to if people actually cross techno feudalism, if you've come across the concept before. So, like, just write in the chat if you know what techno feudalism is, or if you agree with it. That'd be interesting, or you think that it's like a viable kind of analysis of the current situation. So like, tell us your thoughts in the comments. I would love to know where people sit on this one, because like, Giannis is very influential in, I would say, radical, revolutionary, socialist, Marxist, leftist talking circles, and like, having opinion on anarcho-capitalism and cap. Like, you want my opinion on it? Anarcho-capitalism. Like, do you think this is a form of anarcho-capitalism? But like, my thoughts on anarcho-capitalism is like, kind of, anarcho-capitalism just sounds like kind of liberalism to me, like classical liberalism. The idea of like, railing everything back to have a market society develop to its full potential, and like, kind of ensuring that competition is able to flourish and not be kind of restricted from within or from without. So by the state or by the inner tendencies of the capitalist mode of production, which is like a tendency towards monopolization. And so like, anarcho-capitalism would tend to be an environment kind of similar to an ecosystem where like everything kind of balances out, and even the top predators, they're not too big to fail. They fall from grace and then like, are eaten by the antelope, and then they become the grass or something like that. And like, the circle of life kind of stuff. Anarcho-capitalism's capitalists seem to believe that there is a anarchy of the market, which can actually be, I guess, encouraged and can flourish. And it's just like kind of the state and the structure of society that has stopped that from developing. And they kind of, they like libertarians, I guess, but libertarians, I would say, a little bit more narcissistic and nefarious, because like, libertarians to me just sound like people that produce an ideology that suits the rich and the powerful, as opposed to loving the market. Really, they just love increasing private interest, essentially meaning a lack of restriction or regulation in the economic system, as I've learned. Yeah. So like, no state interference, but like, obviously allowing, like I said, allowing fertile ground for an anarchic style of market interaction to be able to take hold. So let us have a quick, squeeze. I will read you a section about like, kind of what he says techno feudalists is. Liberalism is a trip. Libertarianism, sorry, is a trip. And when you say trip, what do you mean? Like a drug trip? Or some other type of trip? Okay, so like, he refers like interchangeably as like the techno feudalists as techno feudal lords, and kind of the cloudlists. So like, people that enjoy and benefit from cloud capital, which he sees as a form of rentier capital, or property ownership that produces revenue, as opposed to producing value for the sake of profit. I just find people that identify as that to be very interesting. They are, and there's some good intellectuals out there, but like for the most part, libertarians are just like, I think, very narcissistic people as a product of a hyper individualized and hyper consumer society. That's, and like they're just like, yeah, libertarianism makes sense, like, you know, all for one and one for one kind of thing. Now, you say cloudlists invested in the creation of new commodities. So, like the cloudlist being like, think of your tech bros, okay? But a commodity is a thing or service produced to be sold for profit. Search results are not produced to be sold. Alexa and Siri do not answer our questions for a fee, like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, WhatsApp. Their purpose is entirely different: to capture and modify our attention. This is the distinction that he makes between cloudalists and capitalists. That the thing that they are looking to control, capitalists look to control labor in order to produce commodities for the realization of profit on the market, where cloudalists, our techno-feudal overlords, do not look to produce commodities, but look to capture data within certain kind of environments that they produce. And the control is to capture and modify our attention and to collect our information and our data and to benefit from that. Ultimately, the cloudalists' investment is aimed not at competing within a capitalist market, but in getting us to exit capitalist markets altogether. They would be the first to see the cloudalists are now becoming fabulously wealthy without needing to organize the production of any commodity. Not only that, they are free from the pressure of a market to produce cheaper, better commodities, or indeed the constant fear of a competitor might come up with a product that steals their market share altogether. We should not confuse rivalry between these cloudalists with market-based competition. So what he's arguing really is that like they control their own domains with absolute authority, and they therefore don't have to exist in marketplaces. And like a lot of the current within this book, a lot of the theme within this book is that like these techno-feudal overlords have actually subjugated the capitalist class itself under their control. And that's why he maintains that they are we are living in a techno-feudal society, because capitalists themselves can no longer live without these tech companies. So like Amazon, for instance, a lot of people that produce goods, small capitalists, big capitalists, whoever is producing, like industrial capitalists, you can't work in the 21st century unless you're on Amazon or something like that, or unless you're on Temu or 4chan or Alibaba or something like that. Yeah, the Revolutionary Reading Group. Ross Ulbricht. Is that a libertarian thinker? I'm not across it. I think my last two comments didn't come through here. I'll have to change the words. Is Marxist getting censored now? That was literally what was happening to Marxist Dad. He was writing Marxist Daddy, and like that wasn't coming through together. This is crazy, man. I am fucking shocked at this, I must say. Like, honestly shocked at this. Like, the other day, we got cut off talking about Palestine, like, mid-sentence. No warnings, nothing. Just, oh, sorry, there you go. And, like, now, certain words like Marxist and stuff like that are being restricted. This is fucked. Like, this is totalitarian. Okay, like this is beyond authoritarian. Authoritarian is like, it's to a lesser degree than this. Like they don't exactly cut you off without you knowing you're being cut off. But totalitarian, like the great mask of like totalitarianism is usually you don't know it's happening to you. Yeah, you got to pay your fealty to Musk and Bezos to get anything done. Bezos with Amazon. Yeah, you got to pay your fealty. You got to pay your commission. They take their cut, and then you can trade within their realms. They are lords of the realm. Ross Ulbricht was the guy who started the Silk Road. Really interesting book, All American Kingpin, and he was a die-hard libertarian. Yeah, I really think it's like the philosophy or the religion of like the ultra wealthy, and it just trickles down to some of us other plebs and intellectuals who are their mouthpieces and stuff like that. Musk with Trump, yeah. Hmm. Musk is a very interesting techno feudalist because like he was almost out of the techno feudal game for a bit until he got into um, Twitter to get some of that media style cloud capital, which is very, very important. Um, so anyway, there's like one other part I want to read to you. Um, like Ford, Edison, and Westinghouse, the cloudalists of Amazon, Tencent, Alibaba, um, Facebook, Apple, Google also invest in research and development, in politics, marketing, union busting, and cartel tactics. But again, they do not. Um, they do not. They do not do so to sell commodities at maximum profit, but in order to extract maximum rents from the capitalists that do. This is a large and important element to his theory of techno feudalism that I think people miss, or like focus on other elements anyway. Is that like the capitalists themselves have been subjugated to the will of our techno feudal overlords. Now, I'm just saying, but like as revolutionaries, and like take a leaf out of Lenin's book. You have to be versatile as revolutionaries. The more power a company has, the closer it is to a mafia. It's a pretty good point. Yeah, that's why they call them cartels at the end of the day. When they get big and start just dealing with each other to close out markets so they can continually have profit off them. Same behavior, same mafioso tactics. I got warned over that I'd lose all ability to use the community services on Amazon. Why? What did you do? The community services. See, community in a real world. Wow, another comment I just made didn't go through. Fuck. I don't know what to say. But like, yeah, we might have to move or like reserve your most unruly comments for Twitch. That seems to be the safe space for us, us rebels and renegades. But yeah, the idea that the capitalist class is subordinate to these techno feudalists, like Lenin in his endeavors to forge the Bolsheviks and to bring on the Russian Revolution at all costs, made certain strategic alliances and dissolved them as soon as he didn't like them. But like, capitalists, hey, could be a strategic alliance along the way to beat off techno feudal overlords, if you know what I mean. Like, not all capitalists see eye to eye, obviously. There are divisions within the bourgeoisie. And like if there's any of them that have gripes against the techno feudal overlords, their capital, their investment, their money could be used to kickstart political campaigns and all that sort of stuff, to get movements going against techno feudal lords, which could then be used subsequently and turned upon them as well. But like, just a note for revolutionary strategy, all I'm saying. Good to point out that the capitalists are now potentially an oppressed class in society. Very interesting times we are living in. I got a warning from Amazon today for leaving a Marxist criticism, I guess you're saying, of a product, or another review of a product. They just took it down and warned me my content review was objectionable. And this is the idea of like techno feudalism, is like, you know, on their platform no rules apply but their own, and they have full control over speech. He makes a strong case with the points about the app stores and Amazon making everyone pay a fee. Yeah, it's a subscription form of living, what he describes as rentier, um, wealth accumulation, as opposed to wealth accumulation by profit in the traditional Marxist sense. Like, they'd still call their wealth profit, their accumulation profit, but like, yeah, they're living off subscription and rent, basically. And like, you know, that's how their machine works now. And he does make a strong case for this, because like, you know, everyone's felt the effects of this, I would say. And that I'd be kicked out of the community services. They didn't show me which comment or review it was, or exactly what it was objectionable. I've heard the term, but never with a precise definition. Hello, David, our original American correspondent. Hello from Australia. It is Friday over here, and happy eve of the weekend to you. It's been a long time since I've seen you on a stream. It's good to have you. And using our cloud capital for free to maximize their rents. And that's why we are cloud serfs. There's no exchange, which is the traditional relationship, the social relation between capital and labor. There's no exchange that comes with being a cloud serf, or a techno feudal serf. They get your data, you produce value for them for free, for the right to be on their land. And we are tied to their platforms like serfs. So you have, David, you have heard the term, but you've never had a precise definition. So let me get to that definition for you. I'll give you my opinion, but like, but I'm a hashtag influencer, so life isn't so bad. Let me give you like almost what Giannis gets to, because he's written about it. It's his concept. So the great transformation from feudalism to capitalism. This will give you some context, David. The great transformation from feudalism to capitalism was predicated on the usurpation of rent by profit as the driving force of our socio-economic system. So feudal lords, the aristocratic classes, they derived value in their wealth from rent because they just owned everything. The capitalists changed that because like they started producing wealth through their productive capability. They would put things in motion. They would use their money and their wealth and put it into motion to create more wealth, as opposed to just sitting on assets kind of thing. I'll continue. That was why the word capitalism proved so much more useful and insightful than a term like market feudalism. It is this fundamental fact that we have entered a socio-economic system powered not by profit, but by rent, that demands that we use a new term to describe it. To think of it as hyper-capitalism or rentier capitalism would be to miss this essential defining principle, and to reflect the return of rent to this central role. I can think of no better name than Techno Feudalism. More importantly, having defined and labeled it properly, I believe we're now better equipped to grasp the meaning and importance of this systematic transformation and what is at stake for all of us. And that is our job today. We're going to speak about this, and we're going to, first of all, define it, David. So, yeah, techno-feudalism is an abandonment of capitalism. So capitalism being a society, a developed market society where most people get their existence by exchange with other people. So people don't exist anymore really self-sufficiently. Like you hear very rarely of people, living off the grid or something like that. And like the whole society as a developed exchange society, so people trade kind of their labor for commodities and goods and services, or people start businesses and trade with other people so they can survive and all that sort of stuff. That's what an exchange society is all about. And like capitalism developed out of a fairly developed exchange society. So there was enough money in circulation. There was enough wealth around for people to start accumulating wealth, and then like prospectively setting up businesses and like using the capital, the wealth that they had to make more. So that is profit. And so a capitalist is someone who makes that profit specifically by hiring labor, so getting a worker and paying them a certain amount, outlaying certain costs for goods, materials, buildings, and labor. So working people, paying working people, and conglomerating all of that together and getting those workers to use all of those things and produce something new and selling that off in the exchange world, in the market system somewhere. And that act of like coalescing workers and herding them together like sheep and getting them to do something for you and produce something new that wasn't there before is the basis for the entirety of the profit system. Now, not everyone gets profit that way by exploiting labor, but like the entire system, if you look at capitalism as a totality within your nation across the entire globe, the way that profit, like the material basis for profit, as opposed to like, the speculation that happens on Wall Street or something like that, the actual basis for like real basis for profit and like GDP or however you want to measure general wealth and all that sort of stuff is from the extraction of surplus value from labor. So labor gets paid a certain amount, and then the additional stuff that they make that they don't get paid for technically is the basis for profits, basically. Now, what Giannis is arguing here is that, okay, there might still be capitalists around exploiting laborers and like, making profit and stuff like that, or making like there to be a basis for this type of capitalist profit system. But that is not what reigns supreme anymore. The people that control society now are our techno feudal overlords. And if you're familiar with any of the streams that I did around the time of Trump's election, especially his inauguration, I was like, holy crap, like, look who's in the front row of the inauguration. It was Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Google, I don't know what his name is, obviously Elon Musk was there as well. And like, he basically had like the highest echelon of the tech bourgeoisie, the techno feudal class there, paying homage to him and like being privileged to a front row seat of the coronation of the emperor of like, world capitalism as we would see it now at this phase of the 21st century. And so like these people are, I think, incredibly important. And like this election has really brought that to the public sphere about how important the tech bros are to the entirety of the world economy. And they seem to take precedence over like traditional capitalists. People that like, own like oil magnates, or like people that own like manufacturing industries or things like that. It was a salute to these tech bros, which he refers to as techno feudalists, that they are coming to power. And so like with that in mind, that like, they're very important and they sit above the capitalist class. A lot of capitalists, as I was saying before, rely on the tech bros to be able to sell their products and in order to realize their profits. Now, the feudal arrangement for him comes down to this: is that these tech bros, these people that own the digital infrastructure, own it in such a way that it is like a fiefdom. It's like a feudal arrangement. They control the entirety of the landscapes that they hold. So, Beasts and Gods was saying, if you go into Amazon and you apparently piss them off, like they control everything that you do. They control what you say. They control what you see. So like if you type in a product and they don't want you to see that product, you don't get to see that. But like if you go to the shops or a marketplace, you can see what's in front of you. And no one can be like, no, you can't see that, like kind of thing. But like Amazon can do that. They control everything. Like Facebook, like Mark Zuckerberg can control, how you turn your head, like kind of thing. Like if you walked through an environment, even in the public domain, like out in the real world that was controlled by someone else, they can't just stop your head from turning and looking at something. Like there is limits on their power and their control and their reach. But like in a techno feudalist world, they control absolutely everything that you do. Now, what is the basis for this power? So in the capitalist relation, like the capitalist world, the central relationship that sits at the base of that mode of production is the relationship between capital and labor, because capital needs to control labor in order to get that surplus value, in order to get that profit. Now, like the power of the techno feudal lords isn't just from their seat above the capitalist class in the social hierarchy. What the techno feudalists do, the value that they extract from the great masses of society, is no longer labor power, which is like, if Yanis Varoufakis is right, this is absolutely revolutionary, because like this is the first time in human history since like primitive communism where like there hasn't been a class that has exploited a working class for surplus labor, so for like to get additional value out of the work that they do. The value that these techno feudal lords extract from all of us, the great masses, is our data, our information. I have said many times and for years now that data is the oil of the 21st century, and I'm starting to hear other people say that, and it's confirming kind of the opinion that I have had, which is nice. It's gratifying. But like data is what they collect of people, and with that data gives them extreme power. And so like the serfdom of that relationship is like you don't get any value out of, there's no exchange for your data. You don't get anything back for it. And like most people will like, and this is the ethos, this is the prevailing ideology behind data extraction, is just like, hey, if you agree to the terms and conditions and like you're signing up for a service really for free, like you don't pay for Facebook, you don't pay for this, you don't pay for that, like kind of thing. Like, it's convenient, right? So like, let them have my data. It's convenient kind of thing. And you're like, well, they're extracting all of their power from the fact that they control data. And like data, like there's an old adage, knowledge is power, right? And like if you equate or use that kind of stretch that saying a little bit, like data is a form of knowledge because you kind of just are able to categorize and know everything that is going on around you. The more and more data that you collect, the more information you collect on people, you can control them to a T. And there's an important point here, okay? David, I hope this is helping in like a general kind of definition. Like there's an important point here that he makes. Their purpose is entirely different: to capture, so the data, and to modify our attention. This is fucking huge, okay? Not only do they want, like, does like a capitalist paradise is just to have laborers working all the time, and like whatever they do outside of like working, I don't care, as long as they can work the next day and they can rock up to work and they're ready to work. I don't give a shit what they do. Now, a techno feudalist, all they care is about everything that you do every second of every day. They want to monitor you. They want to know how you're feeling. They want to know what you're thinking about. They want to hear your conversations. They want to know how many stairs you climbed. They want to know what music music you listened to last. They want to know all of this information so they can modify your behavior, and they can get you to do things that you might not have done before because they can predict what you're doing because they have information about you. And this is exactly how this world works. They listen to what they monitor what you're listening to on Spotify. They judge that you are in a melancholic mood because you've been listening to some sad music. They've realized that you're cooking at the moment because like you've just looked up a recipe for something, and so maybe you're emotionally eating, and then bang, they're going to hit you up with an ad about, like, I don't know, gym membership because you just felt bad because you've just been binge eating for the last half an hour, and like you're feeling sad anyway. And then so they start to manipulate your behavior and start to encourage you to buy products and to do things within the realm of what is beneficial to them. So like there's a great explanation of this, like when it comes to like things like Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go, the infrastructure around Pokemon Go was set up, and like basically if you've ever played this game before, it uses geolocational data to kind of figure out kind of, you know, where you are and in relation to like, you know, what missions and what Pokemon you can catch and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, McDonald's and Starbucks, I think, got in with the creators of Pokemon Go, who were kind of the, let's call them techno feudal lords of that realm, the Pokemon Go realm. They controlled all the information there, and they were using data. So they were collecting geographical data from everyone and figuring out like what they were doing, what their patterns were and stuff like that. And they were cross-referencing this data with other data. And so like McDonald's and Starbucks paid big fees to the Pokemon Go company or its parent company, to make sure that like during lunchtime or like when people had like were, you know, hungry or like they should be hungry and stuff like that, it was pushing Pokemon and their adventure towards, you know, McDonald's and like Starbucks, as well as those being like certain facilities within that game. So like there's an active push here by techno feudalists to use data that they extract off you for free anyway to control your behavior. And so like this is what techno feudalism is about. It is a dark and scary world that we have never been able to produce as a society before because we have never had this technological sophistication or means. And that is a very, very brief summary of it, even though I've been talking for like 10 minutes about it. We need to find new places to talk and to buy and sell our services and goods until the revolution. Yeah, well, that's a difficult one. The difference between medieval feudalism and this is several factions, companies would vie for control, and they are vying for control at the moment. In the same way that like kind of medieval countries, even though they were under the prevailing ideology of like, you know, the Roman Catholic Church or something, they were still fighting it out amongst themselves, and competing with one another. It's hard to argue against Varoufakis, but it is still associated with capitalists. So it's a tool owned by the capitalists, a revisionist use of tech, but still capitalist power. Varoufakis also says the way the techno-feudalists fund themselves is not capitalist, since it's not profit-seeking. Yes. And it grew into existence by leveraging government credit and debt while they grow. And I think that's an important point, actually, while they grow to dominate their fief. Now, I think that is a really important point because like he spends a bit of time in the book as well and just talking generally about this idea that like, you know, profit hasn't been a part of the world capitalist machine, like in terms of a totality, since like 2008. That's really weird. Yeah, since about 2008. Are people still in here? Does something just drop out just then? Just let me know in the chat if you can actually hear me. It looks like from my end that like things have dropped out. Interesting. But yeah, so like since 2008, they've basically, you know, the central banks of every major advanced country has been all good. Okay, sweet. Has basically kind of just been printing money And so like the biggest corporations out there, which include the tech bros, they just get money printed by the trillions of central banks and world governments, and get given that money to kind of reinvest in their own stocks and strengthen their portfolios, which then they use also because like they kind of don't have any other reason to invest in, like, you know, markets and new products and stuff, because people don't really have the money that they used to have anyway to buy all these things, so it's not too safe, so they just reinvest in the stock market and then like kind of reinvest in like the latest technology, and just like increase their data rule and their data sovereignty basically. And so like, you know, profit isn't the driving force for these people anymore. It might still be, like I said, the driving force for capitalists and the people that are subordinate to the techno feudal overlords, but like, you know, not for these techno feudalists. And if they do really rule at the top of this structure, and it's not important for them profit anymore, because they're just like, basically this is the conglomeration. This is like, I guess you could say this is the manifestation of 100 years of imperialism, like capitalist imperialism as defined by Lenin. What is going on? Please just tell me if you can't see me, or like things cut out or something, but like on my end it looks like it's completely dropped out. Yeah. This is like the manifestation, this is the conglomeration of years of imperialism. Is like, we've now created these entities, these companies that are too big to fail, literally. Not because like, you know, they're too big to fail, it's going to hurt the economy or something. They're literally too big to fail because like they can just sustain themselves because they live off, you know, printed money via the state. And like, yeah, they just live like these massive conglomerates, these huge private organizations. All good. Okay, good. Thank you. They exist and they just don't play by the rules of capitalism anymore. Sundar Pichai is the one censoring this stream, right? And that's the guy, that's the CEO. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, he was there front and center at Trump's inauguration. And then with the next day, like first thing he announced, Project Stargate. Like Gary, what's his name? Gary Ellison or something like that. Massive contributor, an investor in that tech space. The Japanese guy that was there with him, and Sam Altman. Again, like the veritable who's who of the tech industry around Trump in like the first and second day of his new presidency. The bourgeoisie, especially billionaires, know folks like Trump are their ticket to power. And like these specific tech billionaires are the ones that are coalescing around Trump at the moment. Stop censoring me, Sundar Pichai. Who is Sundar Pichai? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's the CEO of Google, a billionaire himself. Yes, I tried to get a list of volumes from a collection a vendor had, and Amazon blocked my inquiry. See, like this is the fiefdom. Like, you know, in a traditional marketplace, like, you know, if you went to a retailer that got something from a capitalist kind of thing, and like you were there speaking to the retailer, you know, like the retailer wouldn't block a sale because they need the money. But Amazon, you know, why are they controlling you? Because they don't like you, beasts and gods. I guess they figure I was trying to circumvent the right to control my interaction between the vendor. It's crazy. LOL, he's the one Mr. Google hired to run his company. That wasn't the purpose. I just couldn't find them with Amazon's search function. I knew the vendor had volumes. I just wanted to buy them. But they wigged out when I asked them for lists and URLs. Data for dopamine. That's a good it's a good little slogan for techno feudalism, isn't it? Because it's pretty much like that. Like they keep you enamored and completely engrossed in social media or whatever it is that you're consuming on your device, or whatever you're doing, and you're attached to a device. So like maybe you're not on social media, or you're attached to some screen or something like that, but maybe you're wearing a Fitbit or something that monitors your biodata, and like, you know, your Fitbit's like, hey, it's time to go for a run, you haven't done enough steps today or something like that. And so like, you know, as you run, it's monitoring your heart rate, and that's sending that information back to a company that it sells to a third party who collects health data on people, and like they make billions of dollars that way. In Warhammer 40k, the citizens of the Hive cities work 23 hours a day in workplaces with no precautions or regulations. Great. Sounds lovely. And that's basically what techno feudalism is, in the sense that, like, if you're producing data for someone, like, the worst thing that you could do is like not provide them data. And so, like, if they can collect your biodata, like if you strap a watch to yourself or something like that, or like they put an implant in you, like a Neuralink or something, even when you're sleeping, you're providing them value. So like it'll be 24 hours a day soon under techno feudalism. That's a startling claim, but it's hard to deny that large sections of the economy are now just rent seeking. Yes, and like a lot of capitalists have moved to this model, like they produce a product and like it's a subscription basis or something like that. Even a lot of car dealerships, like you don't buy cars. A lot of people don't buy cars outright. They get them on finance with the dealer. So like, you know, they can come back and like continue to buy cars and stuff like that. But like that's still like producing value and like trying to seek profit off it. It's just like, you know, getting profit in installments as opposed to getting it out in one hit and someone owning the stuff outright. They're producing value. These techno feudalists, like, you really have to argue whether they are producing any value at all. And that's why, you know, give me a capitalist any day over a techno feudalist, because a capitalist does help produce like value. Larry Ellison of Oracle, sorry, not Gary. I was close enough. That Internet of Bodies things freaked me out. Yeah. Remember that? And then and the Internet of Trees and all that sort of stuff. Like, what the fuck? Okay, so like we watched in a stream recently where the bourgeoisie, the tech bros, are like trying to kind of set up, and like this is real because like we checked out the website and stuff like that. They're setting up this thing called the Internet of Trees and like the Internet of Bodies, where they're going to monitor basically everyone. But like the Internet of Trees really wigged me out. Like, in the name of conservation, they're basically going to map out every square inch of the Amazon rainforest to be able to collect data about the Amazon and trees and stuff. And this is just, like I said, it's just about total data control. The more that they can get, the more knowledge they have, the more they can leverage that to push products onto people and control what they do. They want you to almost, but not quite, find what you're looking for. Yes, it's a curated finding of what you are looking for. That's right. 100% curated, because like you feel like you found what you were looking for, but like there was some sequence in the back there, like Alexa talked to you, or you saw an ad pop up on your screen and it like suggested something to you, and subconsciously here you are, and you're just like, oh fuck, you know what, I am hungry, like maybe I will order some food on Uber Eats or something like that. Like, how the fuck did it know that I do feel hungry? Like, you know, and like here you go. And then like they just get richer. So yeah, all of this stuff is like, it's very compelling, the argument that he's making, but like the argument really comes down to, and now this is where we're going to get nerdy, is like whether or not this is a form of feudalism or a development of capitalism itself. And so like this is where the real argument, I think, comes down to with techno feudalism. Is this really a new economic mode itself, which Giannis would argue, or is it a later stage of capitalism? So like I will leave that with you. You can think about that. But like we're going to go back to 2021 now, where Giannis Varoufakis was talking to Zizek, about this concept of techno feudalism, and like that's 2 years before the book is first published. So like, you know, he's developing, I believe, his ideas at this point about techno feudalism, and like let's see what he has to say about it, because then we can see the trajectory of like his understanding on things. So like, you know, stop me if you want, and if you have any comments or anything else, anything like that, and we'll see what he has to say.
We talked about this often. One of the features of, I don't know how to call it, new phase in the world order where, as you told me, we no longer live in this traditional neoliberal market order and so on and so on. I remember we were talking even on phone. You remember that moment? I think it was in the spring or summer of 2020 when on the almost the same day that the numbers came out from United Kingdom and United States of how the production fell down, stock market went up. And then you say there is something tremendous happening now in capitalism. It's no longer the old market, profit, productivity, and so on.
It's no longer capitalism.
Can you develop this?
Yeah. I'll go back to that date. Thank you for reminding me. It was the 12th of August, 2020, not that last August, the previous one. 9 o'clock in the morning in London, the news came out that the national income of Britain, GDP as it's called, had fallen by more than 20%. That had never happened before in the history of capitalism. British GDP falling in 1 year by 21% or so. Never. It was not anticipated. The markets were expecting a fall of 8, 9, 10%, 20%. No one. 15 or 16 minutes later, the stock exchange, the London Stock Exchange, goes up by 3%. There can be no explanation of that along the lines of capitalism, right? One explanation would have been if the markets were already factoring in, expecting a 10% decline, and it was 8%, things were better than expected, so the stock exchange might have gone up. But to expect 10% and to have 20% and the stock exchange to go up, something else was going on. I know what it is. I'll tell you what it is. Since 2008, the great financial crash, capitalism is on a drip feed. It's being kept alive through constant injections of money from the central banks. That has never happened before. It started in 2008. In 1929, it didn't happen. That's why all the banks closed down. So the banking system and the stock exchange had 12 years of getting used to, becoming addicted to, central bank money being pumped their way during difficult moments. So, imagine you're a stockbroker in London. You hear the news at 9 o'clock in the morning. Minus 20%. Oh my God! You think, that's the first thought. Then you think, if I panicked, the guys and girls in the Bank of England, the Central Bank of England, are panicking. So what they're going to do is they're going to print even more billions. And they will give it to me to play in the stock exchange. Buy. So the point I've been developing in my head, and we had a little discussion about this earlier because I was telling Slavoj that this will be my next book next year. It's my crazy theory that capitalism has already evolved out of itself. It has been transformed into another system. And the reason why I say that is because, for me, capitalism requires two things. Firstly, profit to drive it. It's like, a petrol engine that needs petrol. Capitalism needs profit, private profit to drive it. Capital accumulation, as we Marxists used to say, okay? And the other thing is that exploitation takes place in markets. That's the whole point about capitalism. In feudalism, there was no market exploitation. You had the peasants, they were growing rubbish, wheat and potatoes and cauliflower, I don't know what it is, that they were growing, and then the sheriff, on behalf of the Lord, would come and take half of it, or 60% of it. There was no market, it was just expropriation. It is with the enclosures and...
That's a really important point, okay? That, like, in capitalism, there is exploitation on the market. So, like, workers choose to enter into market relations with their employer, and they take some money up front, a wage, and then they produce extra value above their wage for their employer. And so that exploitation is what fuels the system. Like, the entirety of the system really is like kind of feeding off like this extra magical value that is produced by the working class on behalf of capital. But like in this world, in a techno feudal world, like they don't need to exploit workers as such. Like that might still get done by the capitalist class through another means, and through a separate like production cycle altogether. But the people that sit on top and rule this society, they enlist everyone. They enlist the capitalist class to maybe produce the value, but they basically skim off the data value and expropriate that value off the entirety of the human race. Now, everyone is a point of data, for this capitalist class, and that's where they get, so for this techno feudal class, these cloudalists, and that's where they get their power and their value from, by expropriating this value.
The eviction of the peasants, who then become suppliers of labor at any price, that you have the creation of the working class and the labor market. There was no labor market before that. Okay? So exploitation takes place through markets: money markets, land markets, house markets, labor markets. But now, after 12 years of the 2008 crisis and beyond, we have the replacement of profit by central bank money. That is the new fuel of the system, of this exploitative system, and the steady encroachment into the space of markets of platforms. Amazon. The moment you go into Amazon or Facebook, the moment you enter Facebook, you're outside of capitalism. You're not in capitalism anymore.
Because, explain.
Yeah, you go into Facebook, right? Let's say you want to sell your stuff, to advertise your business in Facebook. You go in, you use your credit card, you pay money to Zuckerberg, and some more people see your advertisements. You go in there to meet your friends. You want to advertise this evening. You go and pay money. One person owns the whole digital space. It is the equivalent of stepping outside in Ljubljana. Imagine, just science fiction for a moment. Imagine you step out in Ljubljana, on the streets of Ljubljana tonight, and you look around and you think, oh my God, all these buildings belong to one person. Everything that is traded in the shops that I see is controlled by one person who decides what prices are charged, what prices are not charged, who can trade, who can't trade, who can buy, who can't buy. And moreover, imagine that Ljubljana operated like Facebook does or Amazon does, whereby what your eyes see is determined by one person, by the algorithm of one person, who, if he wants you not to see something, you will never see it in that digital space. This is not a market. This is a fiefdom. It's a digital fiefdom. It's a platform. Those platforms make a lot of money. But the rest of the economy, look at companies like Uber, for instance. They've never made a profit, ever. You have private equity. Have you heard of private equity? Do you know what private equity does? They go in, they buy a company. Let's say a company that provides health services. It's got doctors and...
I think that's a very important point about feudalism as well, techno feudalism, is that like they control everything that you see in a traditional marketplace. Like I was saying before, if you walk down the street and you see a shop that you like, you go into the shop, kind of thing. But like, in Facebook Marketplace, in Amazon, like you can't go like walk down the street. You can't search something and like expect that everything that is associated with what you're looking for will appear for your viewing. It will be curated. You won't be able to actually see everything. You'll only be able to see what they choose. So like, let's just say they wanted to cut you off and they didn't want you to buy a product, or you were someone who's trying to sell your product and you fell out of favor with Amazon, or they were trying to replace your product. Even if like 1 million people were searching for it, no one would get to see it. They get to choose that. And that's different to a traditional marketplace and like the liberal ideal of a marketplace. Imagine a fake hospital thing where you're told in an email that you may have a tumor, but it's a ploy to get you to hospital to place an implant to help companies read your mind. That's pretty scary. And like you could definitely go there, couldn't you? Like, you know, they tell you to come in for something and then they hit you up with some other type of service and they're monitoring you now, etc., etc. I remember the Internet of Things craze, yes. My wife worked at Cisco Systems for 15 years and they were big on that for a while. Bodies were going to be part of it too, but instead we got fascism. Yeah, well, like fascism may be something that helps trigger us over into full-blown techno-feudalism because, like, the thing that's standing in the way of, I would say, full-blown techno-feudalism is the fact that we have, like, these antiquated liberal, like, human rights in the world at the moment, and we have, like, kind of visions of democracy and political organization and like restrictions on like what these techno-feudalists can do. So, you know, it'll be something like fascism that smashes away all of our rights and like our values that we hold dear in like, you know, democratic societies and like politically free societies. It'll be something like that like smashes all of those things to pieces and allows techno-feudalists to come in and take over. The longer fascism lasts, the more likely we will get transhumanist. Well, you weren't able to write that. Is that why you had to write it like that? Transhumanist. Internet reporting implants sold to us as helpers or assignments or just necessary for work. Sorry for the premature posts here. Hit the wrong key. Okay, on this cell phone. The important part to feudalism is the strict hierarchy. So what is that under techno-feudalism? Well, I think the strict hierarchy comes just from the absolute control, like the absolute control. So like you enter into their systems and like they control everything through their algorithms and they control basically what you do and what you say. Like with what was happening with Beasts and Gods, he tried to circumnavigate their system and now he's being taken out of the picture entirely, which is basically what would have happened in a feudal structure. Is if you didn't listen to their to the rules of the lords, you'd be taken out of the game or just killed or something like that. Or imprisoned indefinitely. So like, I don't know if it's much about the hierarchy because the hierarchy before was the thing that provided the control, where now it is just simply the control of the means of production which provide them with that power. But like, as I was saying before, Ollie Atlas, like when you looked at the inauguration or the day after with the announcement of Project Stargate, like that was a merging together of state power and tech bro power. And like Peter Thiel, who we have been more and more talking about on this stream and on this channel now, like he is the embodiment of the merging of the techno feudalists and the security apparatus within the deep state. So like these people are becoming more and more hierarchically aligned because they're merging with the state, and the state is full of hierarchies in the sense of like, you know, positions of power guaranteed to elected officials and representatives or people with technical abilities. So like, you know, you might find just a general morphing at some point of techno-feudalists with the state, especially if, as Yanis is predicting here or analyzing here, that it is the state that keeps these massive these conglomerates up right now, not based on profit, just printing money and giving it to them. Basically. And so like, yeah, there seems to be a hierarchy of control and why the state is so important. And I will make the argument at some point that it is neoliberalism, so this ideological framework that we've been living under since the 70s, that has enabled techno-feudalism, if we're there, it has enabled techno-feudalism to come about. Oops, can't type fascist anymore either. Or health insurance, something blocked my comment. Really? Health insurance too? As long as you don't talk about CEOs in the context of health insurance. Sorry if I missed the reply, but curious your thoughts on my question. If the banks didn't get bailed out. Oh, did you? When did you say that? Sorry, I did completely miss that. If the banks didn't get bailed out, and somehow the money went to the people, what would be different today? Still techno-feudalism? Well, like, I guess it depends Curly Luigi coming from the CEOs. Yeah, thanks for IS. Cheers. um, yeah, if the banks hadn't have bailed out, hadn't have been bailed out in 2008, the real question is if those banks, or if that process would have continued, because at that point, while it was obviously a faux pas, like the majority of the world's population didn't think that it was acceptable conduct for the government to bail out the banks while the people were suffering. It just depends whether or not that was the point at which that type of practice would have been normalized. Would there have been another circumstance that happened where the Federal Reserve or something like that, the central banks of like the European Union and like the US and stuff like that, would there have been another event that like gave them license to just print money and give it to large companies and corporations and stuff like that? If there was another event and that eventuated and developed along that trajectory, then yeah, we might have ended up with techno feudalism. But I think techno feudalism, in the sense that it is related to the exploitation of people's data rights, as a primary source of value for it, would have developed along those lines. Maybe they would have had to have merged or had an agreement with the capitalist class, instead of getting all of their money, their liquid assets, straight from the the central banks themselves. Maybe they would have had to have cut a proper deal with the capitalist class. Like Amazon wouldn't have been able to as ruthlessly subjugate the capitalist classes out there. They would have had to cut better deals and not make as much revenue on top of like through their commissions every time a capitalist makes a sale on their platforms or something like that. They might have had to have worked more hand in hand with the capitalist class, and there would have been much more of a merging between traditional capitalists and techno feudalists. But like I don't think that would have stopped the coming together because of the technological revolution that happened with the Internet of Things. I don't think that technological revolution, manifesting itself in something like a techno-feudal arrangement, would have stopped. Like, there's incredible power that comes from data, and surveillance capitalism, as someone like Shoshana Zuboff would call it. And like that would have developed in and of itself anyway. It's just with the help of the central banks, like you know your Googles of the world, like they didn't even bother with like real, like with profit and stuff, or seeking profit through value creation or something like that anymore. They literally just get money handed to them because like they're the only ones that can be trusted to pay it back. And so like there's this weird feedback loop that goes on with massive corporations and central banks printing money and just giving out to the biggest players because like it's too risky to give it out in loans to the general public because people are too unstable to pay it back. So like I think techno feudalism could have developed without at least the bailout scenario. Just my humble opinion though. The comment about social hierarchy was true, but the various estates of men under feudalism is just an old analog system of control. Our computer systems permit the same type of control as tech. The privatized monopoly internet would still have occurred. Hard not to see techno-feudalist rentiers not happening anyway, even if people got to keep their houses. Yeah, the weaponization of credit would still have occurred. That tool was already happening in 2008. It just kept happening faster under this oligarchic monopolists. So I'm going to leave Yanis Varoufakis right there. And I'm going to go to this crazy lunatic from about a year ago, apparently. I thought it was more than that. I thought it was 2 years ago. But we're going to have a look at this piece of content and see if there's any truth or validity to its what's being said about it. Because like it could just be trash. It's likely to be pretty trashy. let's be honest, it's only 4 minutes long, but it might give us like a good and neat, succinct kind of definition of what techno-feudalism is, and it will give me a nice insight to how my brain was working like a couple of years ago. So let's have a listen. But remember, this guy's pretty outrageous.
Techno-feudalism is a term coined by Yanis Varoufakis to describe the economic system that has replaced capitalism. But what is it? Well, it's simply the takeover of information technology by big tech companies to create private digital networks that control you, the user. Big tech companies know so much about you thanks to the endless data we provide them. There is no longer a need to have markets for goods and services. Their machines or algorithms know what you want better than you do, and now they get it to you directly. Your phone or Alexa listens to you, records everything you do, and trains you to train it to suggest more things that you should consume. Data is the oil of the 21st century, but at what cost? Our story begins with Google, who started with the ethos that a good search engine would never let ads get in the way of the best search results. But then Google hit financial troubles.
This is true, by the way. Google did start off when they founded themselves as a search engine, and like they didn't want ads to get in the way of good search results. That was their motto at one point.
What the people at Google noticed was that when people searched, they left behind traces of their habits, what Google originally called data exhaust. They realized that this exhaust could be manipulated to place ads based on clusters of user types. This ad will work best with this group, etc. This made Google outright the most effective and therefore profitable search engine for advertisers in the game. From that point on, in the early 2000s, the Internet of Things would never be the same. It would become an endless pursuit of data control powered by AI. Why this is so important is that early on, before anyone even knew it, private companies set the terms on data ethics. It is common sense today to sacrifice your data, valuable information that you produce, for the
I like this point. This guy's got a good point. That is, it's the ethics of data collection. So like the terms of the relationship set between the techno-feudal overlords and everyone else that they extract data from, the terms of that social relation, if that is the central social relation in techno-feudalism, is set by the ethics of, hey, I'm getting a convenient service, it's for free, they can have my data. In the same way that the social relation in capital, the central social relation, is a ethics-based decision based on, hey, I'm a laborer and like I have labor power and I will sell that labor power, that ability to produce for a set wage. And then the capitalists will take whatever the hell they can take on top of the value of my wage, or the price of my wage, the cost of my wage, whatever value I produce on the top of it, it's theirs. And that's the central kind of ethical dilemma of capitalism, is like, this is that's a system of exploitation, or a scenario of exploitation, because you're not getting paid your full value. Whereas in the techno-feudalist ethic, that question really comes down to, hey, you're getting a service, you know, like how convenient. Like, look at all the work we've done to develop our systems so you can go off and like get onto Facebook and connect with your friends and distant relatives, or you can get onto Amazon and, like, you know, at the click of a button, you have something delivered to your door. We've set up that system for your convenience. The least you could do is give us full rights and ownership of your data that you create. And that's the fundamental devil's bargain that comes with the techno-feudal mode of production, let's say. This channel is predicated on a revolution being necessary to save us from capitalism. in its various guises. At least it's my understanding since being here, in which case a short reprieve in '08. And shitification. Revolution doesn't get through all the time either, it looks like. Why did you write revolution like that? Did you get censored again for saying the word revolution?
Sake of convenience. Once the tech companies knew that they had unrestrained control over all information the world's populations create, the sky was the limit as to how they could recreate the world in their own image. Take Amazon, for instance. You speak to Alexa, maybe you don't, and she suggests things that you don't even know you wanted, and you don't even have to lift a finger for that product to be at your doorstep. Amazon controls that entire process from start to finish. You don't browse through different stores anymore, looking for the best deal as a conscientious market player like Adam Smith would have wanted. Amazon isn't even just a global distributor. No, the capitalists that produce the products they control pay 40% of their profits to Amazon to be part of the system. The capitalist class is now literally paying tribute to Amazon. They are subordinate to big tech. This is not capitalism, i.e. capitalists make products that are distributed through an elaborate market system with advertising in the hope that you go out and consume their stuff. The capitalists, the market, the distribution are all controlled by one all-powerful entity, a lord who even controls what the consumer sees and hears. You don't get to see products unless Bezos wants you to. This system is so scary because it's based on behavioral modification. The more we feed this system our data, our preferences, our daily habits, our heartbeat, our emotions, it changes us. As AI learns about us, it manipulates our behavior. Like a sheepdog rounding sheep into a pen, we are herded towards predetermined outcomes. An example, McDonald's and Starbucks paid Pokemon Go big money to be Pokestops and gyms across the globe. You think it's a coincidence that a game based on augmented reality, i.e. geolocational data, pushed players towards massive corporations where people would think, well, while I'm here, maybe I'll grab a coffee or something to eat. It was entirely premeditated. It was about controlling the user. We are losing free will in this game. Like feudal peasants who were tied to the land, we are tied to our smart tech. Slaves to it, producing data that feeds our techno-feudal lords, fueling their global empires. Wake up. Remember, wake up. I am.
Yeah. What a pump up at the end. That was so good. I got to bring that back. Or it was deprive the wealthy that did it? Jeez. MysterE manipulates my behavior. Yes, I do. Yeah, with the face reveal. Yeah, I've lost some of that that energy that I used to have. Far out. Look at that. But that quick editing style as well. Bang, 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 bang. Yeah, it's a different style on it these days. That's for sure. But like still relevant points. I think they're all relevant points still. And it's a good summation there of what it really means. So David, if you're still listening and you wanted to get a definition, that's a good summary. That brings together not like Techno Feudalism just by Yanis Varoufakis, but the concepts provided by Shoshana Zuboff, who was, I think, a pretty instrumental player in the analysis of what she describes as surveillance capitalism. So she doesn't describe all of this stuff as techno-feudalism. She describes it as all silly names. Well, Jerry Poppins. Well. They are silly names, rather, but like important if you want to fight against them. You need to know thy enemy, and you need to be able to articulate it well enough to be able to fight against it. I think that's like a Sun Tzu thing, right? Hey, it's an art of war thing, Jerry. Silly as the naming conventions may be, crucial for our strategy as revolutionaries. Brandon Knox, hi from Chem Class. Welcome welcome to you. And to anyone who's new, that's a great summary of the ideas. Thank you. Thank you. This guy from a couple of years ago had it going on. You articulated the hell out of those names. Thank you. Thank you very much. See, 4AS and MysterE proof class exists. It is proof. There you go. Eh? We've got someone actually in a class, quite literally. I told you it exists, God damn it. Chem nerd. Are you titrating or doing stoichiometry? I don't even know how to say that. You can tell that I'm not a chemistry student. My nickname on here comes from my cats, Ollie and Atlas. Study. All right. So here we go. Now, I'm not sure how everyone feels about this guy. Like I've said, he is the grandfather of modern Marxism. And so I love him. Like I said, he has that paternalistic kind of grandfather vibe going on about him. And like he cuts through a lot of the noise in Marxist thinking. Like a lot of Marxist stuff has just been about like cult of personality stuff to get people to kind of subscribe to a particular socialist party or group so they can kind of exploit them for their own needs. That's how I see a lot of socialist parties and stuff like that. But like he just analyzes Marxism, this guy. So hi from the working class. Yes, and hello to, yes, our new arrivals, Derry and Brandon Ox, on the eve of the weekend at the most sacred time for us in the working class, a time of liberty and freedom to reproduce ourselves, unfortunately for the services of capital, but like reproduce ourselves nonetheless and enjoy our existence. Working Class 101 equals seizing the means. Yes, and we do forget that, don't we? Because that's the thing, like the techno-feudal overlords, if they do concentrate the means of production into fewer and fewer hands, because like the means of production are like kind of spread across the capitalist classes. But if a techno-feudal world like develops to such a point where they displace the capitalist classes from the ownership of the means of production and have them just like kind of working for them as another subservient class, then like they're actually easier to kind of overthrow because like you know where to look, you know which techno feudal lords to go after. But the capitalist class is very diversified and you know, very dynamic as well. So like, you know, if techno feudalism is a further concentration of capital in fewer and fewer hands, and like their conglomeration of the means of production, then bring it on, because like at least we'll know where to go when the revolution comes. So this is David Harvey, and like he's basically spent an entire podcast or I don't know, conversation here, a 42-minute conversation explaining the evolution of capitalism to arrive at a point about basically whether or not he believes in this idea of techno-feudalism and whether we've moved on to a new form of mode of production that goes beyond capitalism. And like, you will see what his thoughts are on this, because I think, you know, Yanis Varoufakis is like incredibly intelligent. I love his work. I think he's instrumental, but he's also politically involved. And so like he, you know, he runs an organization, DM25. He's been involved in politics physically in the bourgeois political system. He kind of goes around and gives speeches and talks and all that sort of stuff. He's like kind of sexy. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's a marketable item almost. Like he goes around and he's a product himself. And like, I'm not saying that to detract from his ideas, but like, you know, he was obviously, he he's a commodity of sorts, let's say. Whereas David Harvey really just analyzes things from a Marxist analysis, and he is persistently anti-capitalist. Whereas, like I would say, Yanis Varoufakis through Techno Feudalism, while I'm sure he's not just trying to sell a book, he's trying to etch out his own position in history as someone who has made up of his own contribution to academia and to Marxist thought and all that sort of stuff. So, like, if anything, there may be an element in there of his own kind of personal position in the Marxist canon kind of thing. Whereas, like, I don't think David Harvey really gives me that sense where he's like trying to make sure that he goes down in as one of the greatest Marxist thinkers or greatest leftists of all time kind of thing. Not that I'm saying that Yanis really exudes that, but like, you know, compared to this guy, Grandfather Harvey over here, like Harvey's just analysis, nothing sexy at all. And so, like, I like his opinion, and I think we should consider what he says about techno feudalism. So let's have a listen to that. Comrade Harvey reads Capital like literature. His epic lecture series on Volume 1 should be experienced by everyone at least once. Yeah, I agree. I've listened to that before. David, that was excellent. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. The old MysterE appreciates that. Unfortunately, he had it videoed several times now. Fortunately, he's had it. Yes, fortunately, because it goes down the archives, and you know, you get basically a university level education from David Harvey without actually having to go to whatever prestigious university he's working at. Harvey's book about neoliberalism is great too. Yes, it is. I've read it. Varoufakis was once finance minister of Greece. He's a secret revisionist. Yeah, because he makes fun, like very tongue in cheek about like us old Marxists kind of thing. I do really highly value his opinions and stuff like that. But like I said, like he's, you know, he's out there in the marketplace of ideas, let's say. All right, I let it slide when you said you loved him, but now he's sexy too. You know what I mean, Jerry. The Yanis Varoufakis is pretty sexy. Like, come on, Jerry. Look at this guy. Look at that. Hey, come on. I know you would do horrible things to that. Jerry Poppins, I know you would. Ironically, I got a brief history of neoliberalism from my father-in-law, who looks like David Harvey, if he was an Irishman in his 80s. He even said he's not a Marxist anymore. I can't remember what lecture or interview it was, but he said it a couple of times recently, even though his father was. He's not anymore. That was Varoufakis, I mean, not Harvey. Greek god. Yeah, veritable Greek god, isn't it? But like, yeah. I have heard him say that, but like he always returns to kind of a Marxist analysis on things when you hear him speak as well. I've heard him say that, but like he's always just like, oh, you know, as old Marxist kind of thing. He really relies on his Marxist education to kind of as a stepping stone to kind of produce this. Like a big part of this book is even this is like, well, what does capital mean? And so like he talks about capital as his foundation to build his ideas on cloud capital. So like he is really falling upon his Marxist roots. Hot like Cap. Picard, no doubt. Captain Picard, no doubt. Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's listen to Harvey. Let's go.
Where I don't think this is that we should be talking about a new feudalism. It's certainly a new form of capitalism. I think the two areas which I mentioned, which are defining for the new form of capitalism, are one, this financial side, and the other is the artificial intelligence side, and what is going on with the creation of these new platforms, and what's going on with the FANGs, the Apples, and the Googles, and the Amazons, and so on. So we've got a new kind of capitalism, and a new kind of capitalism, however, which is evolving, and it is evolving for certain reasons in certain kinds of directions. And the big problem, I think, for us is then how do we start to be anti-capitalist towards this kind of capitalism? In other words, being anti-capitalist when Marx was was writing was
This is a really good question. Okay, like how the hell do you be anti-capitalist, or like so basically how do you resist techno-feudalists, or techno-capitalists? If he's saying it's not a real thing. Fang equals mag 7 now. What is mag 7? I'm not familiar with that term. And Fang as well. Like Fang is what? Facebook, Apple, Google. Like what else is it?
yeah, I won't say it was simple, but at least it was clear who the enemy was and where the enemy was and what should be done about it. So, you could organize a strike against General
Netflix.
Motors or whatever in the 1930s. And so you have these kinds of things. Right now, those are the things which are very difficult to organize. And so we've got these massive companies which are out there, and how the artificial intelligence and that is going to work is an open question. But one of the other big things is this increasing quantity of finance capital, which I think is extremely dangerous in the sense that it seems to me that the whole world is really operating on one large Ponzi scheme. Because in a sense, what happens is that for every phase of increase in the debt and increase in finance and the rest of it, you get in a phase of increase of species, and as a result of that, you're flooding the.
So he's noticing too, he's picking up on the exact same thing that Jonas Varoufakis was talking about. He's talking about the financialization of the world, the ultimate financialization of the world. He sees it as one large Ponzi scheme, them just printing out money and just throwing all of this money around, flooding the world with amounts of money. Now, Jonas Varoufakis is way more specific than that. He says, like, this money might be flooding into the system, but it's flooding straight into the hands of conglomerates. It's not trickling down to the people. It's not going to the people at all. It's just being used by big corporates. And like, he's not really going into that level of analysis here. Replace Netflix with add Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla. Yes, yeah, because Tesla, like he wasn't really in that game before. He was missing out on all of the data collection stuff, like your Microsofts and your Netflixes and your Amazons of the world were getting.
The world with amounts of money and oligarchic possibilities in ways which I think are really dangerous for the future.
So he just sees it as like, oligarchy, and like problems with finance, capital. He does not see it as a change in capitalism at all. This is just another stage of capitalism, which I find very interesting. Like maybe there is a hidden agenda for Harvey in that, like his whole project has been the anti-capitalist chronicles for a long time. And I've heard, Jonas Varoufakis say when he's spoken about techno-feudalism, it was like, it's hard for us leftists to come to terms with the idea that, we were supposed to start the revolution kind of thing. Wow, what did you say, Ollie Atlas? I've just got like a little warning here that says message redacted, and it's not even coming up on like the message stream that everyone else can see. It's just what I can see. You're being naughty again. Stop it. You've been naughty. Is there a convo between Giannis and Harvey? That would be super interesting. Yeah, I know, right? No, I've never seen one. I haven't seen one. So if anyone else has, I just saw no, and then it was removed. Yeah, it's been redacted. That's all I can see. The capitalist class, when honest, can just be considered rogues. When honest. Honesty, hey? Very subjective. Very rare to come by as well in this day and age. Usually people's like, no, stop it. Yeah, so, yeah, he doesn't, he sees it as a later stage of capitalism, this whole techno-feudal project, let's call it. Definitely got nothing to do with like ushering in a new mode of production. I'll try and find something else where he like gets into that further and kind of develops that notion a little bit. But like I think it's important to kind of be speculative when it comes to the techno feudal thesis. And that is not to say that like we're not heading for it. I actually think we are heading for something like this as the technology increases and becomes more ubiquitous. But I just don't think it's there yet. It's developed. Like I think if you think about like capitalism itself, like capitalism, you could argue started in like the mechanisms for capitalism started in like the 1500s. Me and Jag listened to something really interesting yesterday, and like it talked about like capitalism starting out of like a sugar plantation in like the 1500s and developed from there, and then like, you know, took upon different manifestations and forms in the discovery of the new world and like new changes in ethos and the Reformation and all that sort of stuff. And so like it took like, you know, 400 years to get to like kind of its apex kind of thing. And so like, you know, if techno feudalism is like on the way in and Giannis is being very prescient in what he's saying, then like it's something that's coming, as opposed to are we here already, which is one of the main questions that was put for the title of this stream. What is techno feudalism, but like has it begun? And like I would say the jury's out on that one. I would like to know everyone's opinions in the chat. Do you think that techno feudalism has actually happened? Are we already techno feudalist, or are we on the way there, or is like this just absolutely outlandish and this is just capitalism with a new superstructure on top of it? Like I've been ranting about like neoliberalism being the ideological superstructure that sits on top of capitalism. Is this just the techno feudal body that sits on top of the capitalist engine? Medina, thank you. Yes, it was Medina. Does it ultimately matter what it's called if it still does the same amount of damage or worse? Well, like going back to what Jerry Poppins had said before, like I do think it does matter, yeah. Only in the sense that like if you want to fight against it, like if you are just suffering it, then fuck, who cares what it's called? Like you're a victim, or you're being oppressed, or it's affecting you negatively. That's all that really matters. But like if you're going to struggle against it, like 100%, you need to know how to describe it and how it works, because then you can shut it down. Shut it down. But like you cannot do that unless you're able to like, you know your enemy kind of thing. Know your enemy, know what you are up against, and like that'll make a big difference. I do think it does matter how we like kind of understand these things, and if there's differences, because like if the difference between, you know, capitalists and techno feudalists is that like they live off like central bank money, and then you could start a movement and, you know, pressure politicians to cut off all of this central bank kind of funding, and that'll cripple them a little bit, and you can kind of bring them down slowly that way. But like, you know, if you don't understand how they live, that they don't really live off profiting off working people anymore, they live off like basically a flow of free cash from central bank systems, then like you never know how to fight them on and hit them where it hurts. I guess I do think it is important to get back to pure capitalism, even though Varoufakis doesn't say it. Be reformed. Vietnamese comrade Luna Oi's US partner EJ has a channel called Non-Compete, and he says techno-feudalism is just a version of capitalism too, and shouldn't be thought of as something that can be reformed. Okay. To get back to pure capitalism, even though Varoufakis doesn't say it. Does Bezos have a monopoly on news? He doesn't, but he has Twitch. Like that's his endeavor into the world of media, kind of ownership and stuff like that, which is, you know, it's no small thing. Like he's getting good data, I think, on like vast swathes of the youth, and like the youth that are upcoming, not the existing youth, or the aging youth, or the youth that are on the way out, but like the upcoming youth spend a lot of time on Twitch, especially the American youth and stuff like that. And so like he'd get a good snapshot into controlling their data and what they see and stuff. He owns the Washington Post too. Oh, yes, actually, good point. I forgot about that. He does. Because he recently stopped them from talking about something. I can't remember what it was exactly, but he was being criticized for it. He stopped them from talking about something, and he put pressure on the editor to only put out like content and articles that consider like free markets and something else. He made them pull Kamala promo. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Eh? Techno Feudalism is to me like putting a different version number on capitalism. Okay, so there we go. So that's the general sentiment that's happening here. People are speculative or like and critical, hesitant to actually call techno feudalism something opposite or different to capitalism. It's pretty much just capitalism with a new face. Capitalism version 5.0. Yeah. And like, and that's the thing, because like Varoufakis is very esteemed, and like, you know, held in very high regard, but like people are very critical of this theory, and like with most new theories, people are hypercritical of it. Will achieve full-blown techno-feudalism when AI develops sufficiently to monitor all our data in real time? Yes. And I think that's the real push behind AI as well, is like AI can make not only process large amounts of data, you know, and just wait for a human to make decision, but it can automate the decision as well as the data consideration as well. And so like if you have that ownership of that means of production, that like it has almost endless reams of data, and like it can analyze it and make decisions based on that data faster than any other system in the world, then you have control of the system. And those will be the means of production of the future that like produce all of the value or arrest all of the wealth in society, will be the means of production that are AI controlled, basically. And so like it's definitely an important development of capitalism, if not techno feudalism already. Musk would prefer version 69. Basically cyberpunk, or slavery version 20, and take down the system with Keanu Reeves. Yes. All right. So next time, so on Monday, we're going to go through and look at somebody else who's critically analyzed Yanis Varoufakis's book specifically. Maybe not as much the concept, but like actually goes through the book and takes out quotes and all this sort of stuff and analyzes it. And like we're going to have a look at like that critique to kind of get a better understanding of techno-feudalism. But I think if nothing else, what's important about what Yanis Varoufakis is doing is he's bringing attention to the way that this type, if we're going to call it a form of capitalism, this type of capitalism works, how it functions, the mechanics of it, so we can be conscious of it to see ultimately what the long game is here. And like if David Harvey, for instance, is saying this is a conglomeration of like Ponzi scheme, hyper financialization of capital, and the merging of AI and future technologies. And like, you know, that's what it is. It's important to have kind of that understanding, so we know what we're up against for the next 10 to 20 years, because like the predictions about what's happening, like kind of with AI and stuff like that, and if like financialization is taking over, like the future predictions by people in the AI space about what's happening with AI is absolutely like mind-boggling. It's not a form of territory that we've ever been in before, especially in the industrial era, which is just like, you know, technological advancement after technological advancement that just increases the productivity of labor, essentially. Whereas like, and like, you know, when you increase the productivity of labor, yeah, you replace a lot of labor, like people get cut out of the system, which is like fine. Did I just lose everyone? Because it's coming up on my end as like no one's in the stream anymore. and like I'm just trying to figure out if I'm being censored again. So just someone say something in the chat, please. But like, yeah, if you think of like all of the industrial revolutions that we've been, technological revolutions that we've been through since the industrial revolution, we got 7. But no, yeah, okay, that's weird. It's coming up as 0 from my end, but I can see people chatting. Yeah, like if you think about the technological revolutions that we have been through since the industrial revolution, it's always been about increasing the productivity of the system through new technological means, and increases in productivity does displace labor. It displaces labor massively, but like, so you have like one person who can now do the work of what 100 people could do before, but it was never replacing labor. It was just making it more kind of productive. So you can squeeze more value out of it. But like now, like AI, the way that these guys are all predicting AI and all that sort of stuff is like, it's really about replacing humans altogether, as opposed to just making them more productive and needing less of them. It's really about replacing them altogether. So like the merging of hyper financial capital and like artificial intelligence and stuff like that, I do think that is a recipe for moving away from capitalism altogether. And like if you think of like some of the hype around AI in terms of like how it could become generally intelligent or super intelligent, like that would basically wipe out the need for human intellectual capacity, which is, yeah, YouTube is gaslighting me. Yeah, massive. Marx's dad, you're still here. Thanks. Replacing human intellectual capacity is an endeavor that we've never been on before. Like we've been on a large endeavor since the industrial revolution, or since we started using technology in the first place to kind of take away human skill and human, like, you know, muscle power, I guess you would say, physical strength out of the laboring process. And like machines can do things stronger, they can do things with more precision than like humans can. But like taking the human intellect out of the labor process, like taking it out and replacing that by artificial means of intelligence is an adventure we've never been on as a species before. And so like it does, like I said, it does produce a recipe for an absolutely brave new world. And like I would like to take a positive spin on that, a brave new world as in a liberating force. Like it will liberate humanity from the need from, like, I call unnecessary labor. So like, do we need to do all of these things to maintain our existence? Can't we just like spend times on things that we want to do, like being social and like being social with other humans and developing our understanding and developing ourselves to the fullest degree as individuals. But like there is obviously a very dark side of that. They who control, the techno feudalists, maybe they who control these means of intellectual supremacy, could basically just use that to control the entire human race. So there is a very dark element to all of this potentially. But like, you know, we will see, I guess. We will see. So yeah, next week on Monday, we're going to look at someone who's really taken a knife to techno feudalism and cut it to pieces, and like really argued against Yanis Varoufakis. And like we'll, you know, get in there and we'll throw some punches and we'll try and defend Yanis a little bit. But like we should take into consideration what this person is saying, and apply our critical lenses, our anti-capitalist stance, to our decisions about whether or not we're here and whether or not we should be concerned about techno feudalism. And I know it's like a couple of people have said, you know, do we really care? Are we splitting hairs? But like, I'm not sure, you know, if this is splitting hairs now. Like we're at a juncture in history, and like the tech bros are becoming absolutely fundamental to the ordering of society. And like they definitely are, it would seem, one of the most important, if not the most important section of the bourgeoisie. And that in itself is cause for concern. Hey, can someone summarize the next stream in the Discord, please? I will try to put the next stream, like cut the next stream as well, to try and give a snippet of what we've talked about, if that helps. But yes, wouldn't mind if someone did some summaries. I could get AI to do a summary for you, get the transcript and feed it through and do a summary for you. More than once, radical economists predicts the future after AI takes more workers' jobs from North America. It's cities that resemble Indian or African major cities, enclosed glittering centers and shanties, surrounding them for dispossessed workers who are drawn to those cities. Yeah, it's a bleak outlook. It is. But we shall see. Time will tell. But at least we'll be on top of it. We'll be across it because we know what we're dealing with. Would make sense with apartheid South Africa, people influencing the current direction. Yeah, actually. Yes, it really would, because like we were going through the bourgeoisie, the tech bourgeoisie jag, and like a lot of them were South Africans. It was really scary, actually, the ratio of South Africans to basically anyone else in the tech bourgeoisie. And so South Africa will inherit the earth through the tech bourgeoisie. So watch out, everybody. Like I've said already, it is the eve of the weekend, the highlight of the working class week. A most sacred time where capital cannot touch us. As I said at the beginning of the stream, I'd like to pay my respects to workers, past, present, and emerging. And thank you for joining us today as we battle to understand the world for the deliverance of the working class towards some level of freedom in society. So thank you for joining me. Marxist Dad, Jag, Brandon Ox, Basin Gods, David, good to see you today. It's been a while. Glad you could make one. 4IS. Who else have I missed here? Jerry Poppins, good to see you as well. Who else? Have I missed anyone? No, I don't think so. Oh, the Atlas, of course. Yes, thank you everyone for your contributions. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And yeah, enjoy your weekend, your hard-earned weekends. And I will see you all on Monday. And please remember, until next time, I am, you are, we are a MysterE. Have a great one. See you later. Yeah, back to Chem. Get back to work. Get back to